Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Fogcast. I'm your host, Fog, and I'm here today with Howie. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Fallout. Howie,
Hi.
what do you think we're going to actually talk about today?
Fallout 5, our personal Fallout 5.
Kind of like where we see it going?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things that kind of the question that has to be asked the most is, you know, if you played the Fallout series, if you played Fallout 1, 2, Tactics, Brotherhood Tactics, if nobody knows that one, Fallout 3, New Vegas, Fallout 4, any of the DLCs, you know, you kind of think about what goes through the creator's mind in designing these games. You know, the original Fallout series, Fallout 1, 2, and Tactics, were completely different from kind of the Fallout 3 and the next generation of Fallout, I guess we'd call it.
I forgot, did Bethesda even make Fallout?
No, it was actually a different company, and slips my name what made Fallout 1, 2, and Tactics. I'm sure we can put that in the annotations on the video, but they had actually sold, I believe, the rights to Bethesda. Bethesda took it over.
Yeah.
And that would have been like 2010, 2011.
That what you said? I didn't.
No, I'm sorry. 2000.
9?
I've got to think. Yeah, that would have been 2009. Yeah, I bet.
Nailed it.
Yeah, you were close. So yeah, that's really what they had moved into the next generation. So with that, you know, found a lot more players, more friendlier player base to like that enjoys first person shooters.
Yeah.
With kind of mechanics where it slows down time or stops time for aiming. So I think essentially the question we're asking is like, you know, with all these cool games out there and the whole franchise as it is, you had to ask yourself, well, what if I ever would have made a Fallout? Or how would I want Fallout to happen in the city I live in or the region I live in? Because, you know, it's been California, it's been in D.C., it's been in
Boston.
Yep. The Commonwealth, the most recent one, and then in Vegas or Nevada, you know, Las Vegas, New Vegas. So it's kind of one of those questions. You just have to, you know, as your mind wanders after you're done playing the game and you're at your job and you're thinking about the game, or you're at school and you're thinking about the game, it's kind of what would I make it like? And that's what you and I have been talking about and kind of thought we'd share it with everybody.
Yeah.
So essentially Fallout 5 in our minds is something that kind of resembles the current, I think any Fallout, and not just Fallout 5 if you're talking about it, but any kind of Fallout represents the temperament of the times. So for example, you know, you really want it to be somewhat around like what's going on in the real world. You want it to have some kind of representation. Maybe there's a quest line or an argument that's specific, and you know, for our time right now, it would be like, you know, Trump. You know, it would be a Trump kind of potential candidacy. That's like it would be relevant for this time if it came out right now. Police shootings would be another one. You know, Black Lives Matter movement, that would be another one. You know, beyond women's rights, not just allowing them to vote, would be another one like that.
Yeah.
But giving them more equality in the workplace or equality in standing and you know, I think millennials would be millennial, the generation. So every generation, every so often they kind of name it out. So you'd be a millennial.
Me.
And I fall into the Gen X area. That's what the Generation X.
All right.
And in between there were, I believe, I'm not sure if Gen Y was in there, and then it went to millennial, but that would be it. It's kind of like a 15-year period, 15 to 20-year period sometimes. So that's exactly what you know, you're talking about when you say millennial. It's just a group of people that grew up within a certain time. Pappy and Ma, you know, my parents, they would have been considered probably right within the greatest generation. And the baby boomers. They were kind of right in the middle. I don't know if they really got one way or the other. But anyhow, you know, those are the kind of topics that are taken on in a Fallout. So where was ours going to take place?
In Washington.
Yep. Because why?
Washington.
Is
It's
where we
great.
live. It
It's
is.
great.
Yeah, we're out here in Seattle, and it's it's one of those things about if you could put a game here, how would you make that, and what would you make it about? And you'd said Trump, and what kind of specifically about Donald Trump? It wouldn't be Trump the brand. I don't want we don't want to have to pay him royalties or anything, but it would be kind of that type of character cast, and that would be the main story.
Yeah, even though that's not even what Fallout's about.
Well, no, it's a component of it
Yeah.
because remember they were like controlling immigration.
Yeah.
What we had thought was if you have Canada, and in Canada and the U.S. within the Fallout history had annexed Canada, and would have been controlling a little bit more of it. Maybe Canada kind of slipped away from their grasp, and maybe they're more just controlling the borders, which is really what Donald Trump kind of talks about today, right? That's a very specific topic that could be placed into the game. So you would have a border patrol. It would start out with a border patrol check,
Yeah.
and essentially somebody coming down from Canada
Yeah.
is trying to get into the U.S., whatever's left of it after the war,
Yeah.
after the bombs fell. And essentially that's where you start your character's design. Instead of having in Fallout 3 where it was, the baby.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It was the baby and the special book. And in Fallout New Vegas, you were the courier,
Yeah.
and you met Doc, and
Yeah.
he was taking care of
Yeah.
you and hooking you up.
In Fallout 4, how you got the mirror.
Yeah, you're standing in front of the mirror and you're talking about your looks, and your wife's behind you, and
Yeah.
you can switch between male and female
Yeah.
there. So this would be going into the checkpoint, kind of that scenario where you'd be able to design your character, give them their name and attributes, and kind of they get pushed through by either an explosion going off or something like that, and they're not stopped, and you make it in, and you're in the U.S. And if you know anything about the geography of the area of Washington, it's only about a 2-hour drive from Vancouver, or from the Canadian border to Seattle. So that would be like a nice short trip that you could make in Fallout 5 or Fallout 5, so that you would be able to get into the city, and that would be your main area. But it's not just really in the idea of what we were thinking, like Seattle. It's a larger region. You have to have a region that's decent enough size.
Yeah.
In Fallout 3, you had essentially although they didn't call it out of Maryland, Baltimore, but you were really close in the terms to Baltimore when you were talking about relative to the DC area, the real world. You also had the Maryland coastline for some of the DLC. You were even able to take a railroad track up to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which would be about 6 hours away, 7 hours, maybe 5 to 6 hours away from Washington, D.C. So, kind of thinking about the map size of what you want for these, you would want to have something decent enough for the player.
Yeah.
So we were considering from like Everett.
Everett, I thought
Or was it
Forks, like around the coast.
Well, that would be on the coastline, so it would be all the way out to the Washington coast.
Yeah, to.
So the west
Yeah.
coast.
Yeah,
To.
the Columbia Mountain Range. Oh no,
Well,
not
that's
that.
south. So
No,
I think
it
what it
was-
went was the Washington coastline to Leavenworth.
Yeah, that.
That would be east to west.
Yeah, I forgot. I'm taking Washington geography. I forgot that mountain range. Cascade
The
Mountain.
Cascades. Okay, yeah. It's out on the coastline for people that don't know the area. And then south to close to the Columbia River. I mean, I think that was where that would be a little bit too far. It'd be more like Olympia, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Olympia is the capital of Washington, which it's about from Seattle an hour's drive,
Oh, I didn't even know.
something like that. Yeah. And then north, you really wouldn't want to have to go too far north, so you could offset the kind of Seattle area more closer to the northern part of the map. And that would be to maybe Everett, or because Bellingham would be right across the river, or right across the border patrol. So I mean, maybe you could even do that.
All right.
So you could go back and visit for a quest or a reason, but that would be, considerable distance. Like you'd be talking about like, okay, driving 2 hours north, an hour south, 2 hours to the west coast, and 2 hours to the eastern most part of the map. That would be
No.
fairly decent size, I think, is what
Yeah.
we considered it. And
Yeah.
then, go ahead. I don't know if that covered everything you were
Yeah.
thinking.
That's basically kind of the beginning, but there's also something you forgot about the beginning
What's that?
customization. Your race selection.
Oh yeah, because they're not just one type of race. Again, dealing with. I think we were thinking about dealing with race, but in kind of like a Skyrim-esque way of having more than one type of race. So it's not as clear as black and white, so to speak, African American or Caucasian, but
Yeah.
you would have Asian. I think we had said. Did we say Asian would be in
I
there?
guess you could be that, but what we were saying was ghoul, synth, and human.
And then ghoul, synth, and human. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
human you get like kind of like what skin color you
Yeah,
are.
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
You would have that type of breakdown too. So,
Yeah.
not necessarily to interject race into the game, but not to sit there and ignore it either. Because again, games are relevant to the time that they're made
Yeah.
or launched.
I'd say Fallout 4 is kind of like that. How there's people against synths. Would you say that's kind of like it?
Fallout 4, yeah. I mean, that was the underlying tone was people were scared of synths.
Yeah.
They didn't want to be taken over. They didn't want synths to come in, which could be, attributed to people being worried about technology,
No?
taking too much control of their life
Yeah.
or being able to do that.
Yeah, and also there's like I'm pretty sure like Damon let ghouls into Diamond City.
They did or didn't?
Didn't I think because you don't see any there.
Yeah, I guess they didn't. That is true.
Yeah, because there's a whole town about ghouls,
Yeah.
and they don't like Diamond City.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I guess maybe that was a thing. Like the mayor, Mayor McDougan,
Yeah,
Duggan. Yeah, he was a. Don't give away any kind of
Spoiler.
spoilers. There was a spoiler alert, but yeah, no spoiler alert. No spoilers for the games themselves. But I think that that would probably be close to, what do I want to think? Not
Trump.
I guess kind of racism in a way. If they didn't like each other and they didn't want to be around each other, maybe that's more
Yeah.
the takeaway from that is
Yeah.
that it is based
Yeah.
upon a little bit of racism. I think that one of the other things is you've created your character and you've chosen all these different things. That would be a first, by the way, for Fallout, being able to choose
kind?
ghoul,
Yeah, synth or
synth,
human.
or human. You've been able to choose,
Yeah,
but
you've always-
choosing between them. Yeah. So I think that's kind of adds a new relevant component to it.
You'd have different reactions from different people too.
Yeah, the NPCs are going to treat you differently as you play through it. Even companions probably
Yeah.
would treat you, because majority of the Fallout games have somewhere between 6 and 12, 6 and 14 companions,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, probably.
So you have the ability, and one companion that you pretty much have had across the board in the games is Dogmeat. And you sometimes find them early, you sometimes find them later.
And sometimes there's a clone of dog meat.
It is a clone of dog. It's potentially a synth of Dogmeat. Yeah.
No, I meant there's not even dog meat in New Vegas, but a dog meat.
Meat. Yes.
Dog meat.
Rex.
Yeah.
So yeah, with the different companions, I think Rex being one of them, or Dogmeat being one of them. I think we need to expand the ability to have cat meat.
Yes, the cat meat.
Cat meat is the one that I've been waiting for. Kind of, given that you have the ability to take different, I think those would be permanent companions.
Yeah.
I don't think I would make it, or I don't think we wanted to make it to where you would have to choose to take dog meat or a person. I think dog meat or cat meat would be able to follow with you 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And then you would be able to choose, another companion on top of that. And that's kind of how Fallout 3 was. Fallout 3 actually was set up a little bit more like that,
Huh.
where you could. The only reason you really chose to put in, and this is kind of a funny one, but the only reason I ever chose to put dog meat away or send him back somewhere was so he didn't set off an alarm or something like
Oh.
that, or he would die.
Oh.
Because in Fallout 3, unfortunately, dog meat could die.
Oh my.
They fixed that later on with the DLC,
Alright.
but and it wasn't that dog meat couldn't die, but they fixed it so that you could find more dog meats. Yeah.
That sounds so stupid. That pussy is a synth.
Well, that's part of one of that conspiracy theory, but yeah, dog meat puppies or something like that. Puppies was the actual perk that you could get, and then you could have dog meat return.
Alright.
So it was kind of funny. But in the general sense of having a companion, I think that pretty much you continue to have companions like dog meat, cat meat,
Yeah.
and they're with you all the time. And the reason why is you could have two different things. When we were talking about it, have the cat meat and the dog meat
Yeah.
react differently in the way they help you.
Alright.
Do you remember which they were?
No, I don't remember.
So cat meat was more the hunter, like a real
Oh, yeah.
cat is. So he would be able to go out and get you food. He would be able to go out and get maybe things for,
Food.
well, water,
Yeah.
even that. Anything that
survival.
you were surviving. Maybe even like stim packs or something of
Oh,
that
yeah.
nature. Where dog meat was more like a scavenger, and he would help you for crafting.
Yeah, and protecting.
And protecting, yeah, he would be more of a
Oh, good.
protector because the
Yeah.
cat meat, he wouldn't really have as much concern for you as dog meat would. So we kind of figured that would offset their skill base,
Yeah.
depending upon
Yeah.
number one, what type of level you were playing at, what type of, if it's early on in the game and you don't have a lot
Yeah.
and you need a lot of food, and if you're playing hard mode versus hardcore mode or survival
Versus-
mode or
yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah, and the thing is that we allowed it to be that you able to choose dog meat. You can have dog meat and cat meat because you get a choice.
Yeah.
Somehow in normal and below.
Yeah,
But-
yeah. You would have
hard-
easy and
yeah.
normal kind of thing.
Yeah, but hard and above, you only have a choice between those. You have only one you can choose.
You can only take one with you, yeah, because then that starts to become like a limit to your available tool set, I
Yeah.
guess, in that sense. You want to impose some type of limit. And then the other companions, they would be standard. Well, no, they wouldn't be standard. They were pretty funny, but they would be spread throughout the game. You would have random encounters with them, or even storyline encounters, similar to the other games where you would run across them and then they could join up with you.
Yeah.
And then they would be able to stay at your main base or within the main
Yeah.
city. And one of the things that we had considered for the main city was, of course, to keep it in Seattle, but even within DC, you had Megaton,
Yeah.
and then you also had Rivet City,
Yeah.
which was an aircraft
And-
carrier.
And then Fallout 4 you had Good Neighbor and Diamond City.
Yeah, and then your settlement that you
Yeah.
started up in the north,
Yeah,
Sanctuary.
Hills.
Yeah, Sanctuary Hills. So, but there's kind of, even though there's all of those, there's kind of one main one. So in Fallout, it was Rivet City. Fallout 3, it was Rivet City.
Yeah.
Fallout New Vegas was obviously the New Vegas and
yeah.
the Strip,
And then Fallout 4 Diamond City.
Diamond City. So in Seattle, it would only make sense to have Pike Place Market.
Yeah.
Pike Place Market is one of the most known things in Seattle, and it kind of lends itself to an amazing city to have after the war, because even if we think about it, we started thinking in depth, would it be there? Because we're close to the water in Seattle. Seattle resides on the water. We're fishing, shipping, everything. That's our commerce out here. That's part of our industries out here. But the nice thing about Pike Place Market is it sits above the ocean, or above the Puget Sound, fairly high. It's got different levels to it. How many did we say? Like 8 levels, I think, to Pike Place Market.
Yeah.
And then they have the farmers market up on the main road, and you could kind of wall it off with junk and kind of just have people selling there, as well as places to stay and restaurants and everything.
Yeah. And also, I just want to say something quickly. I have only played Fallout 4, so
Oh yeah, I guess given Howie's exposure, but you played a lot of Fallout 4,
yeah.
probably a lot more than I have. I've played through many of the Fallouts, from Fallout 1 to 2 to Tactics to 3, 4, 5, or 4, and then hopefully 5 if we'd
Vegas.
get this one, New Vegas. But this is not, this would be nice if Bethesda was listening, but this is just kind of something fun. I would hope that other people would, consider your own city and think about it. But I think we've hit our time here today. We can continue to follow
Yeah.
up. So we've talked about the main city
Yeah,
that
a
we would
little
have.
bit.
A little bit, just briefly touched on that.
Yeah, we started a little bit on the beginning.
Yeah, kind of how you get into the area and how you get into the game and design your character, and then kind of talked about the companions and
Yeah.
the map size. But there's plenty of things we've contemplated and we're wanting to talk about. So we're going to continue to do this as a series of just Fallout 5 Pacific Northwest version
Yeah.
or something of that nature. We'll come up with a name, and of course you'll probably see the name on YouTube. But like I said, I would ask other people out there, or definitely suggest other people kind of come up with ones for their own areas, and hopefully maybe Bungie will listen to somebody's and maybe put their ideas into the next version,
Yeah.
and hopefully we'll see it before 5 years from now, which is usually how long they take. Do you have anything else to add, Hal?
No, probably just see you in the next part.
Yeah, definitely for the next cast, we're gonna have more. We'll talk a little bit, probably go into the different regions or areas around Seattle and the different factions. That would be another one. Factions. That would be another one, in kind of where they reside in the area and what they do, and maybe some of the new mechanics that you have
Yeah.
in the game for transport
Yeah.
and traveling, as
Yeah.
well as I think we had talked about
Yeah.
armors and
Yeah.
guns and that. So
Yeah.
we'll try to get to all that in the next one.
Like, first thing next
A little bit
time.
more about Pike Place, yeah.
Yeah. And also some the different things.
Yep.
Different difficulties.
Yep. I think that sounds good.
Yeah.
So, folks, that's it for us. We're going to get out of here. And hopefully everybody will go ahead and click, subscribe, so you can continue to hear more from Fallout 5 Pacific Northwest Edition. And we'll talk to you in the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.